We know there are many choices in internet radio, and the
All right, I'll
staff
give
and
a couple of
hosts of
dollars.
LA Talk Live would like to thank you for choosing the internet's hottest destination for the most eclectic sound and invigorating talk. This is LA Talk Live. We are more than just talk.
I am happy to join with you today in what will go down in history.
Good morning, good Friday morning, and welcome to another edition of Faith on the Front Line. As faith communities and leaders and lay persons and those of faith and spirituality recognize that we can't be so heaven bound that we're no earthly good. And so our objective is to ensure that we address and speak to the current contextual issues that affect life and humanity and human dignity. And so I'm your host, or co-host, Pastor Lewis Logan, executive producer, and my co-host, Reverend William Monroe Campbell, is making some logistical arrangements with a couple of our guests who are calling in. And I'm always good to be in the studio with the Van X Man. He's one of the original X Men. I don't know about the Wolverine and all them other brothers, but he's certainly one of the original. He's the OG. And it's always good to be in the environment where he and Richard Carr have helped to uh, trail or blaze a trail for future broadcasters one day. This will be the norm, and there will be generations of those who will remember the original contributions of these pioneers, such as my man Van X and the great doctor who's on the staff, and also Richard Carr. So this is the station, LA Talk Live, where it's more than just talk. And we are here with Faith on the Front Line. We say we don't just talk about it, we be about it. And so we're about those who are about it. Glad to have on the line a gentleman who I often call the Clint Eastwood of the Clint Eastwood of human struggle and advocacy, both in written and in literal physical terms. He's not only a writer, a critic of social context and observer of critical issues in the community, but he's also an activist and an outspoken champion for the rights and dignity of people. I'm speaking of no other person than that of Brother Larry Aubrey on the line. Good to have you, Brother Aubrey. How you doing?
Yeah. Thank you very much.
It's good to
Thank
have
you very
you.
much.
We'll be joined shortly by educator
Yes,
Miss.
Hattie McFrazier, who
Mhm.
served as an educator with the Los Angeles Unified School District and was head for her region of the SAR board, which did follow through on children who were having problems, children who were not attending school, truant, etc., and has been involved in a host of community activities. So we anticipate receiving a call from her.
So we'll let her, if she's calling in, let her patch in as well right now. And we're grateful because, and in terms of what we are talking about, we broached the subject or breached the subject last week about the um, aftermath of the untimely passing of Miss Maurice Lamont, and how, in fact, it left a vacancy of leadership with the school board in her district seat. And now that there has been some developments that we want to update our Faith on the Frontline family about. And so we have those who are on the front line of that particular struggle, and we want to talk about that. And certainly, Pastor, we want to talk about the uh, open forum,
Yes.
public forum that you're hosting this evening at your church. And certainly, we want to get firsthand front line soldier summary and update from Brother Larry Aubrey, who I know has the ins and outs of what's going on at this time. So, again, welcome, Brother Aubrey, and how are you doing?
Hope I'm fine. Fine this morning.
Fantastic, fantastic.
Very
So,
good. And do we have and
Sister Hattie.
Sister Hattie, are you online with us now?
Yes, I
Okay,
am.
very good. This is Hattie McFray. She also happens to be a member of the Mount Gilead Missionary Baptist
Is
Church
that right?
and Sunday school superintendent on top of
My
that,
goodness.
but an educator and a person with a genuine concern and commitment
I see.
to children and to the community.
Wonderful. It's a pleasure to have you, Miss McFray. How are you today?
Yeah, thank you.
And thank you so much for
So
making
glad to
yourself
be on,
available. And
to
thank
be
you
able
for.
to be on to discuss something that is very crucial and especially to my heart is the District 1 seat that is vacant because of the loss of Mrs. Lamont. Yes.
Absolutely. Now, Brother Aubrey has had a chance to talk to us a little bit about why it was important to him. Can you share with us why this particular issue or matter is important to you and what you think should take place? And then we're going to bring in Brother Aubrey and we're going to have this discussion.
Well, the first thing is that I think people tend to forget that District 1 it consists of a number of students who are underserved. And most of those students are special ed needs students. You have a higher percentage of students who are in group homes. You have students who are returning from camp who are called camp returnees or coming back to school. You have homeless students in this particular district. And I think that people tend to forget that the people who are affected are the children and the families in this community who are students in District 1. And in that, Ms. Lamont's seat is now vacant, and the board did vote 4-2 to have a special election. It's time for us as a community to come together and decide what will be our next step. And we have to always remember that our number one priority are the students in District 1.
I appreciate that.
One of the issues that I have is that, was a lot of conflict about whether or not there should be appointment or whether or not we should have election. That is over with now. So it's time for us to think about what we are going to do as a community. One thing that we need to do is to come together and decide what do we want to do, because this community consists of not only African Americans, but you have Hispanics, you have Asian groups that live in this community and others. And we need to really come together to decide our next plan and what we are going to do. And one of the most important things that we need to do is start collaborating and talking to the individuals in the community that have children in the schools. That's the number one concern. What are we going to do? We talk about the budget that's coming forward, but what we have to understand is that the Board of Education consists of right now 6 members. You have to understand each one of those members and what their focus are on. We need to understand that the board makes the decision, but the community has the right to say, I voted you in. We don't have anybody voted in, but those 6 people, 4 of those 6 people will be up next year also for re-election in 2015. So the community need to think about not only about District 1, but that all the board members represents the entire district. It's not just their district. And that people from each one of these districts are looking that if this is happening in District 1, this could happen in my district. Are we really concerned about the students? Are we concerned about the political aspects? Or what are we really concerned about? And that's why I'm concerned, and this is why I'm concerned, because I live in the community, and I'm concerned where we're going to go forward in 2014 as we begin to look at what we need to do in District 1. And to make sure that we are visible, not only when we are dealing with this situation, but that we are visible during the entire year to make sure that District 1 is heard by the people in the community. And when we talk about the people in the community, we're talking about everybody in the community, everybody that makes up District 1.
Well, thank you so much. I can tell that this evening's meeting is going to be quite engaging and interesting, and I'm sure as your leadership is offered in that context that the community will leave informed, at least, and hopefully engaged in a process that we want to kind of unpack at this point. Because I know you say that the decision has been made and things have passed, but I would like to ask Brother Aubrey exactly what was it like to be in that context, and then ask some questions about how the vote went down or how the decision was made, because I think that the way, or I would like to suggest that the way the decision was made also sets the tone for some of the issues that we're going to have to deal with as a community with respect to those who made the decision and how they actually did that. Brother Aubrey?
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Pastor. Yeah. I'm involved with a group that was a Point McKenna group, and apart from that, our other guest just
Mrs.
said, that's
McFrazier.
history now.
McFrazier is
So
her
it's a
name, Brother
question of
Robert.
where do we go from here. But it's important to understand how we got where we are. And let me say something at the outset. If that board had wanted George McKenna, for example, just as an example, there would have been no problem. George McKenna. I mean that group, the board itself. To tell you about Tuesday evening, for example, we stopped. We helped stop on December the 17th. We were among those that got the board, and possibly principally among those that got a tie vote that night. Otherwise, Mark Ridley Thomas, the supervisor Mark Ridley Thomas, and the charter groups and all of that would have been a slam dunk. They would have had a special election then. And you understand the reason for that has to do with a lot of things. It has to do with politics mostly, and it's unfortunate because the real issue on the floor for that board, it had two choices: to appoint someone to fill the vacancy, as has been said, or to have a special election. It's very, very important. Everything that the other guest just said, the T-shirt guy,
Ms. McFrazier.
she said it's absolutely true. It's absolutely true. The fact is, it's the kids, and those kids and those parents are without representation for up to 6 to maybe 9 or even 10 months, because that's the timeline. And I can tell you as we speak, I saw the papers, the official papers, that election is on now for June 3rd. And if there's a runoff, that's going to go at least another 2 months, 3 months, for the runoff. Okay, that's a done deal now. She said that's it. So the question is where we go from here. But it's very, very important to understand that people like the supervisor. I'm telling you, I'm straight up. Okay, because he has a candidate. Number one, he has a candidate. His name is Alex Johnson. There's no question about that, and that's fine. We all have our choices. But let me just say to you that to me it's reprehensible that that seat would be left open with no representation at that Board of Education for up to 6 to 8 months, possibly 10 months, because that election will not be held now until the 2nd of June, and very likely with the runoff. There'll probably be a lot of candidates, etc. So that's the stage. That's what happened the other night. We mobilized a lot of people and whatnot, but that didn't matter. And that board, you talked about the board and the specifics. I can give you just a flavor of that meeting the other night. The 6 board members there. The final vote was 4-2. Monica Ratliff on one side, and
Kaiser.
That's right, Kaiser on the other side, and the other 4 went the other way. I can tell you, and it's very interesting. Steve Zimmer, was the third vote on December 17th to lock it up 3-3. This time he offers a motion, which is quite innovative, to get an interim kind of person in there and so forth. Then there was questions about the legality. The district's council said, look, that's not going to be legal, and he's going to check it out with the city and blah, blah, blah.
But he knew that.
So in the meantime, then, with that, the board voted that down. Then they had the motion, to have the special election, okay? Monica Garcia and Yalitson are on the other side, periods, as is Vladovic, okay? And you understand the politics, too. Mark Ridley Thomas helped Vladovic to get that office, okay? That kind of thing. And Mark is very close to the superintendent, who incidentally, I'm sorry, I have to have the teacher's name. I don't want to keep saying the other guest. What's her name? What's your name?
Hattie McFrazier.
Miss McFrazier.
Listen, let me tell you, hey, they had this thing wired. You may have heard, the audience may have heard, that the superintendent, John Dacey, has put out a call for a 12-person advisory committee to him, right?
Yes.
To report to him. Listen, that's totally way out. If I was on the board, and incidentally, I was on the board in Inglewood for 9 years, school board, right? If I was on the board, I'd say, that's out of your realm, Mr. Superintendent. Every one of those people have a connection to Mark Ridley Thomas, okay? The ones we checked. Everyone, okay? I'm just telling you that this is I'm giving you the sort of underbelly of this thing as well. So anyway, that's what happened. There's now a question of what do we do between now and the other thing. Our group is going to continue. George McKenna is going to continue. And if anybody knows of a better qualified candidate, please let me know, because we will certainly check that out as well.
Absolutely.
Yes, there are other people who will be running for that seat also. The one thing that I think we as a community need to look at is something that you mentioned, is the fact that the superintendent came up with a committee of 12 people to represent as an advisory committee for District 1 without consulting, as you
Wow.
said.
Wow.
Even though I heard Mrs. Ratcliffe said that they were informed that he had formed this committee. I think what we need
Right.
to look at is very important. It's not just to have our feelings out there, but just start doing research, because the role of the superintendent and the role of the Board of Education is totally different. And we need to know what his responsibilities and roles are as compared to what the board members are responsible. The board members are responsible to their constituents. We elect them. So therefore, a decision like this should not have been left up to the superintendent. And then when I looked at the list, yes, I know several people on here, but I don't see any people from the community who have children in the schools, who have worked in the schools, who knows the ins and out of the district. And that's something you have to realize. Whoever is in that seat must know the ins and out of LA Unified School District.
That's a
who
question.
knows what's going on in every one of those schools in District 1. Who knows that all our kids are underserved.
Absolutely.
And what is happening in those schools, that we have the less qualified teachers, classified people, whatever, in those schools. You need to know that. But I was concerned about the fact that he chose an advisory committee without the input from anybody from the community. Or was there input from the community? Do we know that?
What was the mechanism
And
of
why
input?
wasn't there, Ms. McPherson, why, for example, this is a rhetorical question, I'll grant you, but why wasn't there any pushback from the board on that we know
That's
of?
my question. My question too is because when Monica Ratcliffe said yes, we the board were informed, but it's as if she was informed the day before, as if he had already put this out. It says on January the 3rd. So were they
correct.
informed before or after?
Well,
And there was no discussion
correct.
of it before the board, and that's the other issue.
None. There was
is
none. No.
that there
No,
was
no
no
discussion at all.
And at
And
this
that
point,
should
you
have
begin to
come
deal with
forward either at the last meeting that when we met at the board, or it should have came forward that night, but it did not.
well,
That is correct.
I think part of what
Yeah, and incidentally, I
my
might just say that in terms of that, I think the key thing, I really feel that they made the issue here is representation, and we hear from the other side. We hear that it's a question of the democratic process and its self-determination. Nobody disputes that. Everybody wanted an election anyway. When Miss Lamont just died, after she died, immediately, most of the people I know, myself included, said we got to have an election. But at that point, we weren't taking into full consideration the facts. The fact of the matter is, as soon as they did that, no matter what Kai Zimmer attempted to do, the fact of the matter is, on the end, he buckled on the end and went with the majority. When they did
So
that,
that's what I'm saying. So you don't know whether that was planned or not. So we have to realize that.
Madam, please,
Politics
hold up a second,
plays
please. I
into
haven't
that.
finished my statement. All I wanted to tell you was that Zimmer under the line went with the majority. That meant they sealed the fate of that community of District 1 parents and kids, and children, for at least 6 to 8 to 10 months. When they did that, they told you where they were coming from. Their main thing had to do with something other than the kids. That's all I'm saying.
Absolutely. Well, I think perhaps a couple of things occur to me right now, and as much as I do share your consternation with Bishop, with the Superintendent Daisy's decision, and the way that it appears that the community's wishes, at least Vladovich, which I understand had a consortium of the community to kind of make their concerns known to him, what their desires that they had known to him, seems to have kind of ignored those sentiments that were expressed by the community for the appointment of McKenna, and at least to hear that out and to see how he has voted subsequent to the community making clear their concerns. The question that comes to me is, why is it that we, rather than simply moving forward with our own agenda, get kind of caught up on taking exception to the decisions that have been made that apparently disrespect and disregard our sentiments? In other words, we're saying, well, what do we do next? But why aren't we just developing our own advisory committee? Why aren't we developing our own candidate that's going to run in against Vladovich, because obviously he doesn't care about what his own constituents have said that they want? I mean, those things seem to me to be the next steps that we're already out front and involved in.
Let's clarify something. everybody in District 1 did not want George McKenna. He was not the only person named that was brought up at that time. I think that needs to be clear. You had Jimmy Wood Gray's name that was brought up at the same time.
Okay.
And I need to clarify something because I was at the meeting at Fame. When I went to that meeting, I was not aware that they were going to bring a name before the committee, before the group, because I always believe that you have to start up with a plan. You have to count the costs before you decide to do something. And I don't think that, and I have a lot of respect for Mrs. Waters, but I don't think they thought about that, the cost. You have to know, and she did admit that she doesn't know LA Unified School District, and I see that most people don't know LA Unified School District and how the board operates. Because when you say we need to get our own committee, you have to understand that the Board of Education, the members are elected by the constituents in the community. Everybody in District 1 did not feel that George was the best candidate, and we need to be clear on that. No one else was even interviewed for that position. There are a number of people in District 1 who are well qualified. If I was one of those people who wanted to run, I'm qualified. I know the district well. I've worked in this district for 30-some years. Nobody came to us and say, what are the key things that we need to look for? How many of you who are here really knows those board members? And as I told them that night, that I did call Dr. Vladovic when I was very upset of the fact, number one, that we rushing into something and that Mrs. Lamont had not been buried. That was the first thing. If you were there, Larry, I said that. The second thing was that I felt that the superintendent didn't do what he was supposed to do. He was supposed to make a announcement, not let Miss Michelle King do it because he was the superintendent. But yet he's taking the responsibility. He didn't take care of that, but yet he's taking the responsibility to choose to recommend these 12 people. Now, let me explain something. However, we have to work within the concept of the Board of Education because they are the ruling bodies for LA Unified, and we have to work with them. How do we work with them? We first address this issue of two things. There was a possibility that they are supposed to be looking into it when they go to the meeting on the 14th, and that is the possibility of appointing a caretaker to represent District 1 and the families and the students. But the question there is, as Kaiser indicated, will that person have voting rights? Will that person be able to sit in confidential matters? What will they do? It's the same thing with this advisory. When you have an advisory committee, you only advise. You don't make any decisions. So these are the things that we need to come together as a group and say, let's work these things out. And one thing that we better get together, we better put our minds together and come together and not be bickering and make a decision of what's best for the children of LA Unified in District 1. My whole concern will always be the parents and the children, because without the parent and the children, you don't have a school district in the first place. And we have to let them know that we just don't just talk on the top of our heads, that we go and research and see, because in some states, I've already looked at that, some states, when there's a vacancy within 60 days, you have to appoint somebody to sit in that seat. However, they have David Hawkins that said that we can't do that. How will we know? We always look at what has happened. He said he doesn't know what is happening. But we have all these people who are lawyers and what have you, was up there talking the other night. They should be doing some research right now. That's what they need to be doing. And that's my concern with our community.
323.
We always talk, but when it comes to doing things, we tend to, just talk. What is going to happen after this is over? Will we be at the board at every meeting?
And that seems to me to be something that no one can appoint you all to, and that's my point. My point is, you don't need Daisy to appoint a 12-member advisory board. The community ought to have its own advisory board, its own organization that continues to bring its agenda to the school board and continue to press for those items and particular concerns that they have. Let me just do this real quick and invite our listening audience to call in, and please chime in your concerns. 323-473 3100, 323-473-3100. I know it's kind of mixing up a little bit. We're thankful for Ms. Frazier and Brother Mick Frazier and Brother Aubrey just kind of mixing it up here, and this is what we do. We talk about it, and then we'll be about it, because hopefully out of the last few moments, we want to talk about next steps in terms of exactly what you two see is prescribed for what needs to happen, because we can get into the paralysis of analysis and the morass of continuing to look at what's wrong. But then when it comes to some practical steps, some strategic action, we seem to fall short of that. And I think all of us on the line have kind of agree to that and agree on that. So I want you to think, if you don't mind, as we kind of pivot, if you will, the conversation away from what happened to what has to happen. We're going to take a brief break, and we'll give you a chance to think about that. And want to ask our callers to please call in 323-473-3100. Get in on this conversation. If you're a parent, if you're a student, a former LAUSD student, if you are a concerned citizen, maybe you're an educator, we certainly would love to hear from you. 323-473-3100. We'll be right back in just a minute. Hold on, please, and please don't talk because we can hear y'all through the commercial. Okay, this is so all right. Mute us if you have some background stuff. Okay, Ms. McFrazier and Brother Aubrey. Okay, we'll be right back. Thank you.
Mama, you understand that? No. Well, like I don't understand how you can, cause like I've been to, Paris, Beirut, I've been Iraq, Iran, Eurasia, I speak very, very fluent Spanish. Todo está bien chévere. You understand that? Bien chévere. Bien chévere. Is that right, Mama? Yeah, cause I got my shaker. Everybody's got a thing, but some don't know how to handle it.
If you're like me, it's lunchtime. And I want to thank our sponsors of the Faith on the Frontline radio broadcast in the form of Uncle Daryl's Cajun Cuisine at 2560 Lincoln Boulevard, Marina Del Rey. And also Doolin's on Crenshaw, that soul food restaurant owned by Greg Doolin, my good friend and brother, 4859 Crenshaw Boulevard, right here in Los Angeles, California. We want to thank them for being our special sponsors for Faith on the Front Line. I want to encourage all my Faith on the Front Line listeners, if you're hungry, if you want seafood, Uncle Daryl's Cajun Cuisine is the place to go, right there at 2560 Lincoln Boulevard on the corner of Lincoln and Washington Boulevard. And if you want some soul food and you're not on a diet but need to be, but you're willing to skip it just for a quick second, I'd encourage you to go to Doolin's right there on Crenshaw Boulevard, 4859. Greg will take care of you. His wonderful staff will smile at you, and they will pile it on. I'm telling you, it's ridiculous. Good food, good cuisine. Thank you for being our sponsors. Faith on the Frontline family, go and support Uncle Daryl's and Doolin's. Thank you so much. Faith on the Frontline listeners, this is Dr. Lewis Logan, your executive producer, giving thanks and props to one of our sponsors, United We Ship, 877-229-0577. That's 877-229-0577. Any shipping logistical needs you may have, whether it's a small letter or a larger parcel or whatever it is you need, Michelle Israel and the professional staff of United We Ship will take care of all of your shipping needs. They're going toe-to-toe with the big boys, UPS and FedEx, and they're going to make it happen nationwide through their network of shipping logistics capacity. They are sponsors of Faith on the Front Line, and I highly recommend that you call Michelle Israel at 877-229-0577 for any of your shipping needs. They are special sponsors of Faith on the Front Line. He stepped out on faith, and let's step up and support him. Thank you. My man Van X playing the music that's appropriate and relevant to the topic discussion and the issue that we're dealing with. We're dealing with education in the city. It might have been helpful to that young brother who Stevie Wonder is singing about to have had an education under the aegis of educator Miss McFrazier. She don't play, does she?
Oh, no. She's real.
Man, she like chopping it up. And then you definitely need education to read one of those articles written by Shotgun Man. Good Lord, you got to have a great vocabulary to get it through with Brother Aubrey in the house. So I'm going to let Pastor kind of set us up for where we're going, and then we'll hit it.
Part of what we talked about just prior to the break was the need for us as a community to engage in ongoing conversation. Larry, you will probably remember this. Back in the early 70s, we had a Black Education Commission, and then eventually others developed their Education Commission, the Latino Commission, et cetera, and the Asian Commission, et cetera, and then the school board phased that out. I think a mistake we made, and I take responsibility for this as indeed others, is when the district phased us out in terms of their funding, it did not mean that we had to go into the dark. We could have actually reconstituted ourselves as an independent community entity, continuing to reflect on and give input on behalf of the community to the district. And it may well be that what we're really saying is that we're at a point where we've got to do that again. It may not have funding by the school district. It may not have an office in the school district, but it does not mean that we don't have the capacity to bring the community together in conversation, to draw on the kinds of expertise and insight that both you, Larry Aubrey, and you, Hattie McFrazier, and others have to offer, and to be able to then have input to affect and shape the thinking that influences our the interests of our children. So as we move forward in this conversation, that's another issue for us to give thought to, and give thought to not just in terms of an interim level, but in terms of continuous. I think, Hattie, you talked about the need for continuous and total involvement, and we have to build on that.
Let me just want to comment briefly. First of all, in terms of the Black Education Commission, I'm one of the founders of that.
Yes.
And there's one little point of information that in this particular instance of the commissions, the Mexican American Education Commission was first. It was formed about a year and a half before the Black. But nonetheless, you're absolutely right about that, and I think that's exactly what we're talking about. We need that. But remember something, too. Marguerite Lamont was very well respected and whatnot throughout the community, but Marguerite Lamont had very little support on that board at the time of board meetings. Very few Blacks went down there at all, and she was a lonely fighter up there, courageous fighter, a lonely fighter on that board, though. You got to understand, and our people didn't turn out for her like they should have, even though she was respected. That's obvious by the reaction to and the response to her death. But I'm only pointing out, you're right, Reverend Campbell, absolutely. It's also a matter of accountability. We have to hold our elected officials accountable, but we have to be accountable ourselves. That's what it's all about, and I think that it goes down to some stuff that is not appropriate here to expand on, but it has to do with our own mindsets and the mindsets of our parents and our children and what have you. We have to look after our own. And I mean, I am unapologetically Afrocentric, Black-centered. I mean, that's people take care of their own stuff. And Mrs. McFrazier talked earlier about everybody's got to be in. Of course, everybody has to be in. But let me tell you, my experiences in the vast in this area, unless you have your agenda together, you get swallowed up. You must. Right. How can you possibly be effective with others if you're ineffective with yourself? How can you relate to others if you don't accept yourself? Right. A lot of our people have these problems. So I'm saying, to me, that's not a point of discouragement. That's a point of challenge. But moving ahead, I agree wholeheartedly. We have to come together. There's no question about it. I'm involved in that. Pastor Logan can tell you I'm involved in that now and in the past, and will be until I guess get into the wherever I go, the grave or the jar. I'm not sure which.
The jar.
But,
remember, you're talking to a pastor, Larry. I can help you on that one.
Mercy, Ms. McFrazier.
Go ahead.
Ms. McFrazier, did you have a comment?
Okay, the only thing I would like to say is that the reason that we are having this meeting today, Friday, January the 10th, at Mount Juliet Baptist Church is for that reason, to set up the next step. We have to move forward, our action plan. And one of the action plan is to make sure that our families in the community are educated in the process of what is happening. We have to make sure that we assume that everybody gets on the internet, everybody listens to the radio, but you'll be surprised of the number of families that do not do any of those things. And so we have to make sure through the churches, through the communities, through the different programs that we have in our community, that people are educated in what's happening in their district. And so therefore, we want the community to be actively involved in the decision. Yes, you have leaders, but make sure that the leaders that you have are honest and have integrity and are concerned about the children and the family. And it's not about themselves. It's not about politics. It's about educating our children to make sure that they are prepared for the world. And that's what we're concerned about, and that's what I'm concerned about. It's the welfare of our children, the next generation. And so this is why we're having this community involvement meeting, so the community can not only, and it's not a thing, as you mentioned before, to talk about what has happened. We're moving forward. We're not going backwards. We're moving forward. And we're going to make sure that we have an action plan when we leave there, that we can go forward.
Let's note that
and
Mount
some of the
Gilead.
things that you all have mentioned today will be some of the things that we will be concerned with this evening. And that's why I don't want to go into them. Yeah.
Let's note that Mount Gilead is located at 9201 South Normandy Avenue. That's at the corner of 92nd Street and Normandy Avenue. It is a pink church edifice. There's parking both adjacent to the church and across the street from the church, as well as parking on the side streets in the neighborhood. And that's at 6 p.m. tonight at 6 o'clock at 92nd and Normandy at the Mount Gilead Missionary Baptist Church. It's an open meeting to the community, and we invite all of the community to come and to share their own reflections, their thoughts, and their voice in this process of addressing the issues that impact our children and our families.
Let me kind of press you all a little bit, because I've been to a million of these meetings sometimes. I'm just trying to put it out here. And one of the concerns I oftentimes have is that, just like we were just saying, we do so much belly aching and arguing about what happened to us, who disrespected us, that we don't spend enough time talking about next steps. How is this going to be different this evening, Ms. McFrazier and Pastor?
Okay, as I said, we have agenda, and those of you who know me, first of all, I believe in starting on time. The meeting is at 6 o'clock. The meeting will begin at 6 o'clock. We will give just a quick overview of the role of the Board of Education, as well as the superintendent's role, for people to understand when that question comes up, because on the agenda, we do talk about some of the things that we need to do as far as looking at in the process of interviewing candidates within our community, talking to people about what are the issues that are crucial to them as we move forward in District 1. And one of the things that we really are going to talk about is how do we come together, as you mentioned, to start planning what our next step would be with the board before Tuesday. And that when we do go to the board, that we go with facts, not how we feel, but just be to the point. And I'm a person that believes in, when you're talking to a group of people, you better have your facts together, and you don't go on there with how you feel, your personal feelings, because we have to realize we are concerned about the students and not ourselves. And I think that's important.
I appreciate that. So it appears that you have a sense of an agenda. Will there be open mic opportunities for expression?
That's what it's an open forum. Okay. As I said, it will be an open discussion, but it will be guided, because I will be the facilitator to make sure that we stay on the focus of why we're there.
Okay. All right. So I feel a little better about it. I mean, it starts on time, but will it end on time too?
What did I just say? It will begin on time and it will end on time.
What time will it end?
Well, we sincerely hope that the meeting is from 6 to no longer than an hour and a half. It shouldn't take us that long because we're not going to talk about what happened in the past. Okay. We're going to move forward.
All right, Miss McFrazier, I hear you. I appreciate that. So you don't want to just talk about it; you want to be about it, and you want to get it done.
So we can talk all day. That's what happens to us. We can talk all day, but we need to move forward. We need to set up, collaborate, organize, and unite. Those are the three things that I will be talking about: collaborate, organize, and unite.
Mr. Aubrey, what do you think? Is there another meeting coming up that you're aware of as well?
It hasn't been scheduled. Our group that together the other initiative there. I mean, we'll be meeting on Monday, and we'll be in a position then to talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to say, just in terms of my thing, I agree that we have to move forward, and that's it, and we don't dwell on the past. But I think we have to also learn from the past, though, so we keep that in mind as we move forward. I think we have to move forward. No, I mean, this is very important. I got to tell you, Ms. Frazier, you talk. I mean, I don't have any answers, but I've been out there a long time, and I know the difference between stuff and ice cream. And I tell you, our folks are complicit in this problem. We didn't cause it, we know that, but I'm going to tell you, the fact that Marjorie didn't have people at that board, Marjorie was a champion for students, as you well know, all along. That's significant. And I don't want to dwell on that, but I'm saying we have to at least keep that in mind. And so maybe we have to approach it different ways, because knowing that, one of the things I think we have to do really is establish common ground. We can't assume common ground. We have to establish the common ground. Then we can hold people accountable and move ahead. Most people get in and say, yeah, okay, I'll see you. And even if they come in, they have another agenda, they walk out with another agenda. We're going to try to get some people who agree that the kids are first, and let's take it from there, and then we move ahead. And then we get explicit agreement. I mean, it's either signed or verbal, but we need somebody saying, look, I'm in, and you can count on me. That type thing. So I got to tell you, I can't tell you, I've been involved in every, and it's not a badge for what do you call it, plaudits or anything. But let me tell you something. I've been involved every attempt. Dr. Campbell knows this. Every attempt before he was even involved in this town at Bright Unity, and none of it's been sustained since the 60s. None of it. And I'm telling you how difficult our task is. But you know what? To me, it's not a point of discouragement. It's a point of challenge.
Could conceivably an idea for a Black Education Commission come out of this evening's meeting, something like that?
I didn't hear. What was your question?
Is it conceivable that the organization that Brother Arbery helped to found and Reverend Campbell referenced, is it possible that something like that could be the result of tonight's meeting? A Black Education Commission?
A step toward that, yeah.
Okay.
Could be. Like I said, everybody brings something to the table. We have to hear from what the individuals have in the community, because we have to, even if you have a commission, which you have to make sure that you come together and you work toward that goal.
I'd like to invite the two of you to an organizing meeting that will take place next Thursday. It's the King Chavez Strategic Action Breakfast, and one of our concerns and issues is, of course, education. I know Brother Arbery came last year. I
usually come too.
Sat at the table and with pastors and lay leaders and labor leaders, and we encouraged them to kind of develop strategic action steps at the tables, at the meeting, because oftentimes we know we have breakfast meetings and we pray, but nothing comes out of it. It's like what Albert Clegg talks about, wasting the Holy Spirit. You have this potential, but you have this energy and this power and this vitality, but nothing comes out of it. Well, our objective as a group of pastors and clergy is to emerge from that session with having developed an agenda that is reflective of the sentiments of those who are present and at the table, because we know that either you're at the table or you're on the menu. So our objective is to make sure that we merge with those. So if you have the benefit of this meeting this evening, and Brother Arbery, if you have the benefit of other meetings you'll have during the week, we hope that you will avail yourself to the opportunity to come and be a part of the King Chavez Strategic Action Breakfast with some of the leading clergy in the community. So we can do, as you said, unite. Uniting after organizing, we have to unite.
Meeting location and time for the breakfast.
828 South Washington Boulevard, Los Angeles, 90015, I believe is the zip code. And if you look on LA Talk Live's website and look on our page, you'll see the flyer. And if I have your email addresses, I can certainly make sure that you get the flyers as well, so that you can RSVP.
What time is that, sir?
From 10 to noon. So please feel free to invite those who are our viewers, should be able to see the flyer on our webpage right now, to be on our YouTube page as well. You'll see it on Ustream. But we invite all of our clergy partners and community leaders and labor leaders. We want to give a big shout out to Clue LA, to AFSCME, to Unite Here, AFSCME 36, Local 721, and United Food and Commercial, or UFCW. for their leadership and support and sponsorship of our breakfast. Without you all's support and help, we couldn't do it. But we know that
What's the title of the what's the meeting called,
it's
Dr.
the King
Logan?
King Chavez Strategic Action Breakfast.
Got it.
It's our third annual one. You came to the one last year. It's just at the same.
I'll be there.
Okay, I appreciate that. And please feel free to invite other of your colleagues and friends, those who are part of the strategic action work that you do, because we want to get the benefit of real action. We address issues of education, as you know, mass incarceration, police brutality, and racial profiling, which are all synergistic issues within our community. Just immigration reform and homicides within our communities. We have got to stop the violence, but we think that part of the cycle of violence has to do with hopelessness and a lack of self-esteem and the sense of self-importance and purpose, and that of the same for others.
Is there a cost?
Zero. Just come and give some time and give your energy. Thank you so much, Pastor. He's helping me. I need my co-sponsor.
So there's no cost for the breakfast on Thursday, January 16th from 10 a.m. to 12 noon at what location again?
828 Washington Boulevard. That's 90015. It's the headquarters of USWW, where the Security Officers Union is. So we hope that we'll send. You should see, those who are viewing should see the flyer on our page, and those who are interested in getting that information, please hit me up on Facebook. That's Louis E. Logan II on Facebook. You're welcome to email me, or you can call in. We'll be here in the station for a few minutes after we go off the air, 323-473-3100. We'll be happy to get your information and forward to you the flyer. And look at us on Facebook again, like us, and we'll certainly make sure that you get it. Louis E. Logan II. You on Facebook, Pastor? I don't think you on Facebook.
I receive information on Facebook.
Yeah.
How about you, Larry? You on Facebook?
Sure the word gets out on my end, and including at the BCCA steering committee every Wednesday morning. So I'll certainly put that out there. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
The other thing I want to say to Pastor, before we get off this, Pastor Campbell, I have a commitment tonight. At the same time, I'm going to try to get there for the first end of the meeting. Yes. I know I can't stay past 7, but I'll let you know I'm going to try my best to get there. I had a long-standing commitment, but
and we count on that.
Your input will be invaluable, Larry. Again, always on the cutting edge and the front line of various issues, especially as it relates to education. Talk to us about some of the other potentials for the school board opportunity. I heard my dear friend Jimmy Woods Gray, who I respect. She was a part of the Board of Neighborhood Commissioners, as I was also a member of the Board of Neighborhood Commissioners, and she's quite a leader within our community. What other names or individuals, not that you're campaigning or anything, but certainly it would be interesting just to get a sense of the breadth and depth of leadership that we have.
Are you talking about people that have expressed interest in running for that seat?
Absolutely, others. Yes. I heard Jimmy Woods Gray, and I heard Alex Johnson.
Yeah, and Janitha Hayes has put her name up there.
Okay.
Out there.
Okay.
She's done that. I know. I've seen it. Mm-hmm. She's interested in the seat. If you know, Janitha Hayes is a former school board member. Mm-hmm. She's the one that Marguerite Lamont defeated.
Sure was. I was getting ready to say that. And when I saw that Janitha Hayes had put her name in, and I said, well, we need someone who is really concerned about the kids, and so I'm thinking about putting my name in as a candidate for that seat.
Oh, Miss McFrazier, Lord help!
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
That should be interesting.
The only other one, of course, Alex Johnson.
And then we have several people who've already put their name in for the 2015 year.
Do you know any of those names?
Yes. What's the young lady's name? She spoke at the board. I do have a name. What's her name? It's a funny name. Bill. What is it?
Okay, that's okay. Well, I'm sure we'll hear more from them. Maybe even be there this evening.
Yeah,
but it reflects the fact is that there's several who have interest.
Again, she's a coach for Dorsey High School.
Mm-hmm. And see, for me...
Oh, yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, strong. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And for me, it seems...
Yeah, I do recall her at the board meeting. Yeah. She seems like a very strong person. Mm-hmm.
So
Alex Johnson is
Alex Johnson and Dawson's name was thrown up in the beginning.
Dawson.
Marquis.
Oh,
No, he's not
Dawson.
going. He's running for the
Marquis
8th.
Dawson.
I talked to him this morning. He's running for the 8th
No,
council
he wants
manager
to
district.
he
He is
wants to
not
be a
going for the board,
councilman.
believe me. He's running
Okay,
money
and
man.
Jimmy is no
campaign.
longer going to. Jimmy Wood Gray is no longer going to run because she was only interested in the appointment,
interim.
not to run.
I see. Yeah, that's
Right,
She
that's
was
true.
only
rigorous.
interested in an appointment. That's it. I talked to her last night.
I see.
Yeah, good. That's what she said. I'm glad. Yeah, Jimmy, that's exactly. Incidentally, I'm a lifelong union member. I'm a member of 721, incidentally, and a lifelong union member here in Los Angeles. So.
I think what we're reflecting.
Anton Farmer is part of our group, as you know. That the
Yeah, I know her
workers,
too. I know.
Who's the other lady?
Okay, with Anton, the head of the security workers. The meeting will be held next week.
Anton Twombly.
It'll be held at his headquarters.
Right, that's headquarters. Yeah, that's security officer.
Oh, that's where our breakfast will be held as well.
That's Anton Farmby.
Right, that's where our breakfast will be held. That same location, 828
Right.
Southwest Washington
Right,
Boulevard.
exactly.
Okay.
I think part of what we're reflecting is that there's no lack of persons with potential, talents, and gifts, and the capacities and competencies to lead. But we're at a point where we do need to engage together in dialogue as we seek to gain a healthy vision for the school district overall and District 1 in particular. And we're trusting that that's where the conversations this evening at 6 o'clock will help lead us to, is a sense of shared vision and shared possibilities for our community.
And I hope that that's
I
the
think
case,
great.
because I think oftentimes we
you're
get
very right. Well, will be differences. Let me just say, obviously, at this time, any election, there will be differences. But in our case, it's they always talk about our community split. Well, all communities are split. I mean, but the point is, do we have in mind, as Ms. McFrazier indicated, do we have in mind the children? That's the key thing. Sure. Otherwise, I mean, the rest people on the other side have said right along. They were talking about the process. They weren't talking about children, because they were talking about children. They sure as heck. They would have appointed somebody to that seat, whoever it was, McKenna or anybody else. They would have appointed somebody to represent those kids, for 6 to 8 months. That seat is vacant. I'm just saying, I don't think they really have the kids in mind. I'm sorry, I just don't.
I understand. And I guess one of the concerns I would have is that as we meet and as we talk about various aspirants, that we keep this movement or effort or initiative agenda-driven, issue-driven, and that regardless of who comes and emerges, that they have to speak to and espouse the agenda in a way that galvanizes the community and not necessarily get into a personal battle of one person's character over and against someone else's, because again, you lose the real core concern, which is the youth, which is the children and the parents and our future, the collective vision for our future, which is really what's at stake, not so much buying into a particular personality.
I think in all fairness, though, when we said the others did not have, and we create this kind of a bifurcation, that the others did not have the children in mind, I think the issue was an issue of logistics, and so I would not go off with a saying that others did not have children in mind, but I think it was a matter of logistics and focus, and therein was a different perspective, and so we need to be respectful of that, even though we may disagree.
Sure, absolutely.
I agree with her. Let me just say this to you, just factually. By supporting an special election, you automatically disenfranchise those people in District 1.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. And I hear that, Larry, and I think that was a real issue that was brought forth, and I think we need to be respectful of what you're saying at that point and recognize the sensitivity and the implications of it, and I think we can do that and lift that up as something of important consideration without necessarily engaging in an indictment of the integrity of the thoughts of others.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Hopefully
they feel the same way. It hasn't been the case up to now.
Yes.
Who want to entertain any closing comments, any closing announcements or what have you as we get ready to bring this segment of Faith on the Front Line to a close. And let's kind of maybe review our next steps, perhaps, because that's what we said we'd do. Please review our next steps for us, Ms. McFrazier and Mr. Aubrey, in that order, and then Pastor, and then we'll close.
Well, our next step, as I said, will be this afternoon. Is for us to come up with a strategic plan for us to move forward.
Okay. And that's going to take place where, when, and in what
Please
context?
tell us where. Invite us.
The details of the meeting this
all
evening.
All of the community to come to Mount Gilead Missionary Baptist Church, 9201 South Normandy Avenue. It's the Pink Church on the corner of 92nd and Normandy. The meeting will begin at 6 p.m. sharply. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Mr. Aubrey.
Larry Aubrey, yes. I'm just encouraged. I'm encouraged by this conversation because, we're so episodic, our people, in how they react to episodic outrage with Trayvon, and 6 months later, they can't even spell Trayvon, that type thing. But I think that I'm encouraged because we are among the most resilient people on this planet, and I think we demonstrate that from time to time, but we're also divided on some issues. So I think this represents an opportunity for us to get around the needs of children first, and I'm encouraged by that.
So next steps from your perspective?
Next steps are that that those of us, in my situation, those of us who were for the appointment rather than the special election, we continue. We'll be planning. We're planning that early next week. We'll have specific information for you relative to our plans at the next call on next Friday.
Do you have is the community invited to the BCCLA?
Oh yeah, it's the steering committee, the BCLA steering committee. We meet please, that's right. I'm glad you mentioned that. Mm-hmm. The fourth Wednesday of every month, the community is involved and the general membership. The fourth, and if there's a special somebody wants to specially bring to our attention, fine, call me or call anyone else. I'm co-chair of the group with Dr. Marlana Karenga. Mm-hmm. I'll bring it to our agenda. You know what I mean? And the person might even want to appear, but that's different. But as far as the meetings on Wednesday morning, we've been meeting now for 3 years or more. It's 8 o'clock in the morning on Wednesday. That's the steering committee. But the general membership meeting, all welcome, is the fourth Wednesday at noon each month, and there's food provided and whatever, and it's fellowship.
And the location?
The location is let me see, I've forgotten it. 3018 West 48th Street. 3018 West 48th Street, Los Angeles.
All right, fantastic. And we'd also like to encourage you to put on your calendars, in terms of next steps, the Black Brown Clergy, the King Chavez Breakfast, which happens next Thursday, the 16th, at the USWW headquarters, 828 South Washington Boulevard, Los Angeles, 90015. You should see the flyer on our page as we speak. And if you have any questions, please feel free. We'll be here for about another 10 minutes or so. 323-473-3100. We'll be in studio. And we certainly can take your questions and your information so that we can directly send you the email for the flyer. And Ms. McFrazier, if you want the flyer emailed to you, we can do that. I can get it through Pastor. And or he can forward it to you, because I'm sure that he has a flyer, so he can forward it to you or text it to your number. I want to thank you, too, for being with us during this important episode or edition of Faith on the Front Line, where we don't just talk about... One other
announcement. As you know, on the LA Unified School District, we'll be having a memorial for Mrs. Lamont, which will be on the 18th, and will be at Washington High School at 9 to 11:30 on the 18th of January. At Washington High School, Preparatory High School, in the auditorium.
All right, we appreciate that very much. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for that.
All right.
Incidentally, as we get off, I need to know the internet thing. How do I view you on the internet? I've been on the radio only. I'm just wondering, how do we do that?
That's
we can talk off air about that.
Go to latalklive.com.
Gotcha.
latalklive.com, and it'll show give you the menu for what. Okay. All right. All right, and then we're on YouTube as well. You look us up Faith on the Front Line on YouTube, and we're posted on YouTube. You can see the entire episode. You can see this handsome gentleman to my right, and then you can see Halloween right here speaking clearly, and then you'll be trick-or-treating, and then it'll be horrible. So as we close, any closing comments, Pastor Campbell?
I think it's important for us to be excited about the focus of this conversation. That is our excitement about our children and the future of our children. And we never want to leave behind our commitment to our children and what is best for them. We have a series of events on Friday. The Southern Christian Leadership Conference of Southern California will hold its annual Martin Luther King Jr. breakfast at the Holman United Methodist Church from 10 to noon as well. And all of this says that we do have a very real, critical, genuine concern for the good and well-being of our community and our children and our young people in particular.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. Bless you. And until next Friday, we will continue to be about the business of making a difference in our communities. Next week, hopefully, by virtue of these strategic action steps, there will be some organizational components in place, and we'll have something to talk about it where people are not just gabbing and gumming, but are actually organizing, uniting, and working. And we'll have updates next week from our guests and from those of you in the community. Thank you so much for joining us on the air. And if you have any comments or questions, please feel free to send them to us, email them. I'm on Facebook, Louis C. Logan II. And Reverend Campbell can be contacted
at Pastor W. Monroe C at AOL, Pastor W. Monroe C at AOL, or at the Mount Gilead Missionary Baptist Church,
Absolutely.
9201 South Normandy Avenue, Los Angeles 90044, and the phone number is 323-755-1111.
You can always worship with us every Sunday at 9 a.m. at Ruach Christian Community Fellowship. We're located at 425 South La Brea. There used to be a bank there, but now we're there with the Breath of Life Seventh-day Adventist Church. We're there on Sundays, 9 a.m. And Lord willing, we're ministering this week, Step Away from the Vendetta, a special message to Governor Christie. We hope that you will join us next Friday, 11 to noon. Faith on the Frontline returns because you're on LA Talk Live with More Than Just Talk. Bless you. See you next time.
God bless.